Well, my name is Sarah Lily Rasanovich. I'll be graduating next week with a bachelor's in hospitality management with minors in business and politics. I'm really excited to talk about my experiences during the past 4 years at Drexel and how they've shifted my global self-awareness, understanding of social responsibility, and improved upon my cross-cultural communication skills throughout the Global Scholar Engagement Program. So going back a little bit before Drexel, I've always had a strong desire to learn about new cultures and global issues ever since I was a little kid. Growing up, my grandfather would tell me stories about his travels from all over the world, from Croatia to Japan to Nigeria. I was inspired by his photos and stories. He taught me the importance of being a globally minded citizen, and he was always striving to learn and make positive impacts on the world. Travel and education was such an important part of his life that he really instilled that same sense of curiosity and readiness to explore in my sister and I. When we turned 10, he let us each pick an international trip based on our interests. So that was my first real international experience before coming to Drexel. I chose to travel to London and Paris with him and my dad to explore history and learn more about metropolitan culture in Europe. Throughout my experiences at Drexel, this has really been a driving motivation to learn more and get to gain some of the new perspectives that my grandpa was able to during his life experiences. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to reflect back on my 4 years at Drexel, and I highlighted some of the different ways that I was able to take globally minded classes, events, co-ops, or study abroad. They've all been really transformative. I came to Drexel as a freshman, scared about living away from home and coming to a city I didn't know well at all. I knew that I wanted to study abroad, but I also knew that was a couple years down the line. So I connected my desire to travel to my studies by taking language classes my first year. I took German and French, and I walked away with having a deeper understanding of cultural diversity and different business practices in those countries. My sophomore year, I realized that I wanted to pursue a career outside of my major. I really enjoyed my international tourism classes because I liked the global components of them, but I wasn't loving the other aspects of my program. So I headed into my first co-op a little hesitantly. What I didn't know at the time was that co-op would be a first step towards global education. So for my first co-op, I worked at 3 different departments at the Hilton Pearl River. In my roles with the event team, I provided support and planning services for a large variety of their wedding clients. Now, I grew up in a non-religious household, so I had a lot to learn about wedding traditions. When weddings are typically steeped in cultural and religious traditions, and the hotel I worked at could host 5 weddings all in one day, and they could all be from different backgrounds. As a hotel, we specialized in interfaith weddings, which meant it was even more important that we understood the intricacies of the different cultural needs and wants. Throughout this co-op, I learned a lot about traditions for Hindi, kosher, Catholic, and Eastern Orthodox weddings, among other traditions. You can also see just some of the weddings I worked here, some of the similarities and differences. In addition to my time with the events department, I also worked in the sales department. You can see a picture of me with the sales team at the bottom. And during that time, I helped book 2 international soccer teams. This was my first real world international business experience. I learned about cross-cultural negotiation and even helped to do research on the differences in hospitality services provided in the team's host countries, so we could create packages that best fit their needs and adapted the cultural identities of the team. Right after I finished my first co-op, it was time to head to the UK for my semester abroad. My first stop was a quick solo trip in London. I remember being terrified about flying and traveling alone and going to a place I had never wanted to. I had a panic moment as soon as I got there. Going into this experience, I was really excited to be close to the rest of Europe so I could travel more and make friends. I would have never expected that I felt truly at home in Aberdeen, and I would love spending time and hours in the library of my study group, and that in and of itself would be a cross-cultural experience. And that I would challenge myself in so many different ways. So here are just some of the photos from my 4 months in Aberdeen. You can see my favorite sign at the top from the Aberdeen airport that really captures how I felt about the city and the country. Next to that is a photo of me geeking out on the floor of Scottish Parliament, which was a trip I took for my birthday. One of the things I loved most about studying abroad was getting to connect with people from all over the world and hear them talk about what they're passionate about. I was studying in the midst of Brexit. They actually pushed back the deadline while I was there. And it was really interesting to hear perspectives from my Scottish peers, the rest of the UK, and students from the EU. The photo in the bottom center was actually when my friends and I were talking about the differences in the EU, UK, and US school systems over a vegetarian Thanksgiving dinner that we cooked together. My UK friends were really excited to try American stuffing since it differed a lot from what they'd have at a typical Sunday roast. It wasn't just my friends that I built relationships with. Over the 4 months, I think I connected with more people than I had done in the past 3 years. The other group photo was taken at a show I attended in Glasgow. I met these lovely ladies, and even though we only ever met in person once, I still stay in contact with them via social media, and I really get to see an insight into the lives of people living in Scotland or people who have immigrated to Scotland. It was Maury, one of the women here, who really had a profound effect on me and my outlook on social problems. Maury was a trauma nurse for the NHS, the UK's national healthcare system, and her passion for her role in the UK healthcare system itself was impactful and inspirational. It encouraged me to learn more about the intricacies of the NHS and really understand what it does for the people of the UK. Here on this slide, you can also see a couple other ways I challenged myself, from traveling all over Scotland and Europe several times by myself to dancing in public for the first time at a ceilidh, which somehow was more terrifying than traveling. Going to Aberdeen changed my career ambitions, life goals, and perspectives. Most importantly, studying abroad opened up my world and instilled a persistent drive to go back and study and live internationally after my time at Drexel, something I would have never thought of before. So after my experience in Aberdeen, I was bent on ensuring it was not my last global experience. That's why I was so excited to learn about the Global Engagement Scholar Program my senior year. It's been through this program that I've been able to enrich my education during COVID-19 and during my senior year. I've been grateful for all 7 events that I've been able to attend this year, and I've learned so much about international research interests and processes and the global issues that we're currently facing as a world. I knew that I wanted to do my eventual master's and PhD abroad after my experience with the Scottish education system, but it required a lot of planning and saving. So I started applying to grants that fund global education. Last year, I applied for a Fulbright, and although I didn't get it, the application experience was one of the most amazing experiences I've undergone during my undergraduate year. I got a global experience and perspective without ever leaving my house. Through the application process, I honed in on my research interests, became a better writer, and got connected to organizational psychology professors and students from Ireland. This year, I'm challenging myself to apply to another Fulbright, either in Taiwan or Spain, which means I'll have to start learning a new language, and a Marshall Grant for study in the UK. So what's next? In addition to applying to grants, I also applied to the University of Kent's MSc in Organizational and Business Psychology as the Fulbright program, and I got in. Getting in and getting to speak to the university representative about my proposed research was a highlight of a year full of pain and global struggle. I've deferred my acceptance, and I'll be working this year so I can save money and attend the University of Kent in 2022. If it were not for my experiences at Drexel and through the Global Engagement Program, I don't think I would have ever dared to dream that this would be my plans upon graduating. I truly cannot understate the impact of my global experiences and how Drexel has really shaped my outlook on the world. I'm so grateful for my family's support and for Drexel's resources. If I had any advice to give to future students, it would be to get involved in global engagement as early as possible in your Drexel career, because it really has the power to open your world up and change what you want to do in the future. So that's it. Thank you.
Bravo, Sarah. Thank you so much. Questions for Sarah?
I had a question, Sarah. You mentioned that you wanted to pursue a graduate degree abroad because of the Scottish education system. What did you like the most about it, and did you find anything challenging about it based on your experience at Drexel before you went abroad?
Yeah, I really liked several components of it, but I enjoyed that it was very discussion based. And it was more about learning comprehension than memorization. So there's not really any multiple choice tests. The finals at the end were papers that you had to sit down and write. And although your hand hurts by the end of it, because it's like 4 hours of handwriting papers, you really gain a deeper understanding. And I felt that I was able to connect more with my professors and peers just by the way that it was set up, which I really enjoyed. A challenge was definitely, I came into politics classes as a non-politics major. So I was taking 3rd and 4th year classes with people who had been only studying politics, because in the UK, they don't really do gen eds in the way that we do. So they don't have to take math, English, et cetera. They just take what they like specifically are interested in. So it was a bit of a challenge to keep up with my peers, but my way of coping with that was by creating a study group where I got to learn from people and really just learn to be vulnerable, ask for help, and it's okay that I don't know things, because it's an opportunity to learn.
That's great, thank you.
Other questions?
I have one, because I also applied for the Fulbright. So would you be applying for like an ETA, or would it just be the study or the research option?
I'm doing the study, so for a master's program.
you talk a little bit more about the challenges of applying to Fulbright? That is definitely an intensive application process. And a lot of people wind up applying more than once before they receive that Fulbright. So I'm just curious about sort of the experiences that you've had with that, what you learned from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to set a lot of time aside for it. I had applied for lots of scholarships in the past, but nothing like this. I mean, it's almost like having a part-time job in a way of, revising the same. I think I had 40 or so drafts of my essay before submitting it in October. So it's really intensive. A challenge for me is I'm really strong at research writing, but writing about myself makes me really uncomfortable. So that was a skill I really had to learn and develop because my first draft was really rough. And I was like staring at my laptop going, I don't know how to talk about myself in a way that's interesting and not just rattling off facts in my resume. So that's something I've definitely gotten a lot better at. And hopefully it'll be easier for future application processes, but it's a big time commitment and learning that new writing style can be rough.
Absolutely, it is a very different type of writing style, and to write about yourself is very challenging for a lot of students and faculty too who apply for Fulbright. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Congratulations. That was an excellent presentation. And I look forward to hearing how it goes when you're at University of Kent in 2022.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Casey, who do we have next?
Up next, we have Tamika. So I will go ahead and make you co-host, and then you should be set to share your screen. I think you're still muted.
Yeah,
Tamika. There you go.
I don't know how to find it.
No worries.
So yeah, my name is Tamika George, and this is my presentation on how I've been globally engaged over the last 5 years. Just a little background. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, which is a country in the Caribbean, and just based on how our culture is in the Caribbean, we have had so many people and so many like different things come through the Caribbean that I've always felt very open-minded and very like aware of things, especially because we have a very large people of African descent, people of Indian descent. So it wasn't really crazy for me growing up to observe things of like the Muslim of Islam, or to go to school and listen to Hindu prayers for things like Diwali, or see people of Indian descent wear African garb to celebrate our Emancipation Day. So I always felt like I was very open-minded to those things, and I considered myself already globally engaged or globally minded because of that. And you can ask anybody growing up. I knew I was not staying home to go to college. I was like, I'm going anywhere else. At first I was like Germany, but then I was like, I don't want to learn another language. And I have family in the US. So one of my family members had gone to Drexel, and she was like, you can come to Drexel and you can stay with us. And that's how I came to end up here at Drexel. And what that had taught me, there was always room to grow. So I came in with expectations or kind of stereotypes about what to expect from Americans, from like what I had seen or heard in my visits to visit family members over the years, or, you know, things like social media and TV and things like that of what to expect. So I thought I was pretty open-minded of the things that I would experience, but had I not given myself time to, you know, treat everyone as an individual and learn about them, I would not have met some of these really great friends that I still have 5 years later. So that just told me that there's room to grow, and even no matter how open-minded or globally competent or globally minded you think you are, you always have more room to grow and like learn about people that you didn't necessarily think you had a stereotype about. And that went on to, I did a study abroad in Singapore in my sophomore year. And as you can see, one of those friends who I had made really great relationship in my freshman year, we studied abroad together. And I knew I wanted to go to Asia since before I came to Drexel. I was like, I want to go to Asia. I don't really care where. I just haven't, I know the culture is so rich. I have to get over there. And so I went to the study abroad office and I was like, I don't care which country you think can take me, just let me go. And I'm so happy that I ended up with Singapore. And I like went in with all fresh eyes because I didn't really know much about Singapore, learning that the locals there were very cliquish is a bad word, but I think it's because, they are so school-minded and they're so focused, and they knew that a lot of the international students, like, yeah, we come and we're going to classes, but we're on a study abroad, and the professors were giving us a lot of leeway to, like, because they knew we were traveling and they knew that we were experiencing things for the first time. And I think with them knowing that this was their home and they had to stay focused on their classes, they were less likely to interact with us. But I love the friends that I made. They're people that I still interact with, and we were able to do some travels around Asia while there. I have since also visited some of these friends in other places where they were from. So I just like not going in with that expectation of, oh, I have to meet the locals and I have to do this, like being open to, okay, well, I'm with the other international students, and this is also a great way for me to learn so much about other places. And then with me having this open mind, it taught me about the unexpected treasure. One of my favorite places that I visited was Vietnam, and I don't think I knew too much, or like I knew very, very little about Vietnam, and I just did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. There was a very stark difference between there and Singapore. Me and my friends also did not know that they experienced winter sometime in November. So we were leaving Singapore where we were sweating constantly. And we're like, yeah, we're going like right around the corner. It's in Asia, like it's gonna be hot. And we were freezing. And then the locals there, I don't know if it's because they were seeing us as tourists, but they were more likely to interact with us. So that's why we have a picture. They were having a parade the weekend that we were there, and they were stopping to take pictures with us. And I just felt like that was just such an interesting way for them to interact with us. And just like, they were so willing to educate us on all the things about them, even though we spoke English and they did not, and they were just trying to communicate in any way that they could. So I really loved that experience, and just like the way that it told me that there's treasures in really anything that I like go to, and I should look out for these things. And then we have struggles and restructuring my thoughts in that for my second co-op, I did 3 months in Ireland and 3 months in Prague. And for the year before, I had been thinking, yeah, when I do my co-op, I want to go to Ireland, before even knowing that it was through Drexel. I just knew I wanted to get over to Ireland. And in my head, I was like, this is going to be so great. I'm going to love it. I got there the first week. I was homeless because I was almost scammed. And so just being over there and now needing to find housing, I had not really been in contact with the program directors over there who were finding my co-op yet, because like I wasn't supposed to meet them until the week later, and I didn't really have a phone to get in contact with them. So going through all of that alone, and just like, I could have very, very easily said, well, this isn't for me. And this was clearly the universe telling me that, you need to stop traveling and you need to just stay in one place because you had some good experiences and now it's coming back to bite you. But I decided to look at it differently. See, I really wanted to come to Ireland and I really wanted to experience these things. And had I not changed my thought of looking at things like very quickly like that, I wouldn't have had the experiences that I had there. And I really loved it. I also didn't consider myself a nature person, but I was able to go to the cliffs of Moher and this other tour that took us to this lake and stuff like that. I'm just like being open to meeting the people on the tours, and the locals who more likely to talk to me when I was out. They were also okay with me just being by myself in places. And I just like, I love that feeling of security and no matter what I did. Another way that my thoughts were restructured was I did a weekend in Berlin. And, everyone has kind of have expectations of Germany because of their history and all these different things and the things that you still hear about today. But while I was there, I went to visit the Berlin Wall, or at least like the touristy part that they have paintings on. And I was really surprised to find this picture that says like, how's God, she's Black, which I was just like, I did not expect to see that, because of everything that Germany has gone through. So I was just like, oh, wow, I really need to take things with a grain of salt and like give everyone a chance. And so I love that of me going back to you have stereotypes and you don't know it yet, to really give things a chance. And then just seeing how they treat their history with Nazis and concentration camps because they have this memorial for Jewish people who had passed, and then they also did not want anyone to idealize or do anything with Hitler, so they made the most insignificant thing over his bunker a car park, and they were like, yeah, nobody can do anything here, you don't even know which part of it is, like we don't want any of us really associated with him in any way. And then coming down to the end of my co-op, when I went to Prague, again, very stark different to Ireland. You know, like I had heard there's poor European countries, but coming from the Caribbean, like you hear Europe and you're like, everyone there is rich. Everyone there like has a lot of money because of the exchange rate that I'm used to hearing about. And that was not what I saw. Like I can tell that they were not on the same path as Ireland. It was also really different because this was like the first place where there was a very big language barrier. Like Singapore, they spoke English, Ireland, they spoke English. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anyone here. I don't know how I'm gonna like buy simple things like groceries. Like I kept going through the problem of I can't get water because everyone keeps telling me sparkling water and I just want regular water. And so just small things like that was just like, okay, you need to take it all in stride and take things as you go. And I was really surprised to see a big international population of this co-op. There was, this girl was from Kenya and I think the other guy was from another European country. And it was just like, oh, like you guys don't speak Czech and you're fine at your jobs. Like it's okay to be here without necessarily knowing the language. Like at some point it does get easier. And so that just goes back to the expectation that I had that I didn't even realize that I was going into it with. And to me, being globally engaged means being open, willing, and understanding, being open to new experiences, being willing to challenge yourself and challenge others, as well as offering that understanding to people and like knowing that our differences make us special and willing to hear that, oh, your experience was different and I understand where you are coming from, but I also understand the experience I had and why I feel the way that I do.
Bravo, Tamika.
Thank you.
I think that's so interesting the way you framed. I have these thoughts too all the time. Once you have a series of successful travels, that eventually, you know, a ball will drop and you'll have this like, you know, chaotic experience. So I definitely empathize with it. I definitely feel that way. The more I travel, like when am I gonna have that experience? Everything just goes wrong. So I'm curious. I mean, a lot of your experiences. I'm curious of how your thoughts and stereotypes of Americans differed once you during your time at Drexel, sort of how your opinions have shifted on American culture.
Yeah, so like I guess I had come in just being like, a lot of people don't know anything about people or things outside of the US because that's how it is like shown. People know things about America and that's it. But now I'm like, no, like there's people who once you have interest and like you have access to the internet and all these other things as well. Like if you are really interested, you do go the extra mile. One of my friends, Kai, like when he met me, he knew where I was from. He knew the capital. He was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to visit there. And I was like, wow, like people who I know usually just say the Caribbean is Jamaica. And like, that's kind of what I had expected from them. So like knowing that if someone is really interested, they would have known things about outside and like, it's really an individual thing and not necessarily the way that media has grouped all Americans to be ignorant or unaware.
Great, thank you. Other questions for Tamika?
I can go. I know that we hung out in Spain one time, but how many countries did you get to visit while you were abroad?
While I was in Europe, I traveled to 12 over 6 months. And so that was like, my goal is 25 by the time I'm 25. And at this point, I'm at 18. So I'm like, okay.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah. Had the pandemic not happened, my graduation trip would have been like 4 or 5 countries.
I've also set a similar goal for my next major decade. I won't tell you which one that is, but I too am hoping for 20 countries by age 20. Other questions?
You mentioned that you had you did co-op abroad. I'd love to hear more about like that experience of working abroad because it must be different than studying.
Yeah, so one, they did not have me work. I don't know if it was specifically my program. They did not have me work Monday to Friday, which was very different from my co-op in the US. Like they were just like, yeah, you're here Monday to Thursday. And they were not strict in the timing. Like Europeans are just like, yeah, you get here when you get here and you do your work and you leave when you want to leave. Like my co-op in Prague, it was a startup tech company. And so I would be in there at like 10, 9, like that was around the time that I would get in, like 10 if I woke up on a later day. But I would see some of my coworkers strolling at 12 and others who left at 2. And it was just like very much like that. My boss left for 2 weeks to go to Italy because it had really good waves that week. And so he just left to do things like that. And so I felt very at ease and like not as pressured as I do in my US co-ops of like, oh, I have very strict deadlines and someone is going to be checking in with me to see how I'm doing. They're just like, yeah, you'll do your work. And if you need help, you let us know. If you don't, we'll get it when we get it. And like, that's just how it was. So it was good, especially on co-op, to have that experience abroad, like to travel and not worry about these deadlines.
How did you,
Yes,
really
please.
how did you find
Yes.
housing?
So my manager from my first co-op had put me in touch with someone who worked at EY in Ireland. And when I told her I had landed and everything happened, she was like, okay. And she just sent me a bunch of places that she had seen online. And she was like, go check these out. So I landed on Wednesday, realized that the place that I was going to get was a scam. So I found a hostel and I paid until Sunday. And I was like, I have to find a house by Sunday. Like I gave myself that deadline. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I just went to visit. I got a bus card and I just went to visit a bunch of places. And then Sunday, surprisingly, it was a lady from Philly who had like moved to Ireland to live there. She was just like, oh yeah, like Sunday midday, yeah, you can move in. I'm gonna give you the place. And Sunday by like 6 p.m. I was moved in. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Tamika. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, we can virtually clap. Casey?
Up next is Katelyn.
Okay, so I'll get myself ready here. Sorry, hold on one second. Let me just get the, okay. Did it load? No?
You're good now.
Okay, so let me go back to the top. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I'm having an issue. Okay, hold on one second, sorry.
Take your time, no worries.
I don't know why it's not doing anything. Okay, all right, this should be it now. Okay, so hello, my name is Katelyn McAvoy. I am a senior in the Global Studies program. And I'm just gonna go a little bit over about me. So I'm originally from Anchorage. My mom is born and raised in the Philippines and my dad's from Northwestern Pennsylvania. So I grew up in this like multicultural household. We grew up speaking, well, I grew up speaking English and Tagalog, which is, you know, the Filipino national language, as well as Ilocano, which is my mom's dialect. And so traveling and appreciating different cultures was a big part of my life growing up. So much so that after high school, my mom kind of encouraged me to apply for this internship, like that I didn't really think that I would get, but I did. It was in Indonesia. And that kind of was like a catalyst for traveling for the next 3 years after high school. And about, you know, after 3 years of that, I came home to help my mom out. I started working in an office job. I attended community college for about 1.5 years before transferring to Drexel. So I started at Drexel in fall quarter of 2019. And I knew that I wanted to study something international or globally related just because of everything that I had experienced for, you know, the couple of years before that, but then also just my entire life. And the global studies program at Drexel really stood out as something that I wanted to transfer into. So just a couple of photos of my time abroad, like before I came to Drexel. So this was in Indonesia where I stayed for a year. My internship turned into like a job that I stayed for a year in. So that was my roommate who actually, her name is Rachel. Her mom and my mom were in the army together like 30 years before she and I traveled to Indonesia together. So it seemed like a really cool kind of full circle thing. On the right is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. On the left, on the right is learning how to play the vina in Malaysia, and then South Africa. So on the way to Kruger National Park and Mandela Square in Johannesburg. So I had all of these experiences that kind of brought me to who I thought I wanted to be at that point, you know, when you're in your early 20s, before I even came to Drexel and really wanted to learn something tangible and, you know, kind of culminate all of my experiences, but in my education. So I did an instant decision day. I came to Drexel and I said, this is my transcript, these are my references. And after like an hour of waiting, I got in, which was cool. But I came to Drexel in like a bit of an unusual situation already. So I was like in my mid-20s, I had a full-time office job. And, you know, I had just spent all of this time venturing out in the world and immersing myself in other cultures, which is why I felt inspired to be part of the Global Studies department when I was looking for schools to transfer to. So I guess I did feel like a sense of global competence even before I started at Drexel. But I feel like my global competence has been expanded on and also like challenged while I've been studying here. So my presentation is going to be a little bit different because I did come when, you know, right before the pandemic started. So I didn't have as many like international experiences through Drexel that I would have loved to. So I just want to highlight the events that I was able to attend. And I was, you know, spoiler alert, I was able to go somewhere. But I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the things that I did do while I was here that helped enrich my education. So my first event was like a month after I started at Drexel. It was the Global Passport Series. The topic was activism in China. And it was, for me, really impactful to hear about Uyghur people from a Uyghur person, as well as, you know, Hong Kong's want for sovereignty and stately autonomy. But I remember thinking that these were the types of discussions that I wanted to participate more in as my time in Drexel continued. So December of 2019, I went on an ICA to Guatemala. It was 10 days and there were about 10 other students and then my advisor, Kate. And we traveled to various parts of the country to learn about development, non-governmental organizations, colonization, its lasting effects, and how much Indigenous culture is found and respected throughout the country. So everything that we did was to keep the people of the land in mind. So we didn't want, you know, a big thing is coming in as, you know, that saviorism and saying, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. But it's more impactful to say, I'm going to go and learn from these people and see what I can contribute, if anything. So we did do, you know, a lot of small projects in tandem with Guatemalan people in various parts of the country. So we built ventilated stoves, like in this picture, this is like mid-stove. We did water filters. We just did like a lot of, we did like a reforestation project where we helped clear land to build trees again after fires. So everything that we did was to honor and to learn about the space that we were in and the people that we were with. And I think that that's a really important part of global competence as well. Let me see here. So January 2020 was, I think, my last in-person event at Drexel. It was another Global Passport series. This time the topic was on waste. And this was actually like a really interesting Global Passport series for me because my concentration is global health and sustainability. And I really wanted to hear, you know, on a panel discussion, what that meant for people on a larger scale. So the main speaker, I believe his name was Tony West. Yeah, Tony West. He was a filmmaker and he made a documentary called The Safe Side of the Fence, which talked about like the US's long history with nuclear waste and how that is really a deep-rooted problem of like class and socioeconomic status and race. And I think thinking back on it, I would like to revisit and watch that documentary again because it highlighted things that I was not aware of before. But did so in a way that was like, it made you pay attention to what he was saying. So I would recommend it, The Safe Side of the Fence by Tony West. Now this one, I do have to share a different screen because I do want to show a bit of a video, but so everything's online. And I was able to experience something that I would not have been able to had it not been for being on the internet. So I guess that is something that is a benefit of this. So there is the classroom of adult learners with disabilities in Broward County, Florida. They meet online every day. And I was able to go in there about once a month and share global music from around the world. So there are about, I think, 25 students in each class, ages 25 to 50. And, the teacher, her name is Miss Gina. Her goal was to really get people, or her students, interactive, still on the computer and online. So I would come in there once a month with about a 10-minute presentation about a different part of the world, and then bring music from that part of the world to the classroom. And we would have a dance party. So we did music from Kazakhstan with Dimash. We did Australia because one of the students has like a major crush on Keith Urban. So she wanted us to talk about Australia. We did South Africa with Master KG, and more throughout the end of 2020 into the start of 2021. And I think that this was actually like something I really looked forward to. Creating, like a 10-minute presentation while you're in the middle of classes and work is not always ideal, but it was a lot of fun for me, and to be able to find music and to be able to share them with the classroom on a way, as I said before, like in a way that I wouldn't have been able to if not for the pandemic and online learning. And also, most of the students in this classroom are either bilingual, or a lot of them just speak Spanish solely. And it was nice to be able to connect, even with the students who don't speak English, because everyone would get up and dance and just enjoy the songs that we're playing. So I want to see if I can play just a bit of this. Let's see here. So this is just like a quick clip from one of the times, if it will play. Or maybe not. Sorry. Okay. So she's speaking Spanish to them. But yeah, that was just one of the times when, we would have our dance party. Now I think that actually, let me see here. Okay. Oh, so after that, earlier this year, actually, I think it was in April, I did a Zoom call with some members of the Drexel community. I think that Ahaji might actually be in here. But we did an hour of meditation and reflection, just given like the kind of year that 2020 was, and especially when it comes to, racial unrest for our Black and Brown community. It was nice to be able to sit down and reflect what has been happening over the last, year. It's almost been about, a year now since kind of everything has started. And I thought that this was actually important for me to highlight, because it made me realize that activism does have different forms. You can have your in the street being loud and being all over the place activism, but then you can also have the quiet and more, I guess, demure activism that is still just impactful. It just kind of depends on, the opportunity that's arisen and what people are finding for themselves. But I thought that this was something for like really important that not a lot of people would probably think about when it comes to to activism. So I thought that that was something that would be good to highlight here. And in the same sense as this, so I did also a Zoom call with the Students for Justice in Palestine. They had a talk called Unpacking the Deadly Exchange, which talked about the relationship between the Philadelphia police and the Israeli police. And I thought that this was really important because this is like your quintessential college event. So it's a student hosted event, has a faculty advisor, a student-led activist group. And I think it teaches students two things. So it allows them to stay up to date on relevant subjects, on world affairs, local affairs, but it shows students the power of speaking up against injustices that we may find. And it also like helps diversify information that's found in the world, because oftentimes American rhetoric can be fairly one-sided. So this allows, you know, a broader scope of what is going on around the world. And then I think this might be my last one. I wanted to talk about this one, so I attended another Zoom call, William Morris and Indigo, talking about a designer, William Morris, from the 1800s and his use of natural dyes. And I thought that this was interesting, especially thinking about my concentration in the Global Studies department when it comes to fast fashion and consumption, and how that really is a community issue, and how, yeah, so that was something that, you know, I really wanted to highlight in here as well. Oh, and then this is my last one. So the student conference on global challenges that happened a couple of weeks ago, there was a panel that I particularly wanted to watch, and that was the one on global health and sustainability. And this was the talk that I was looking forward to in South Sudan, and how climate change does change how food is grown, or how families feed and also generate their income. And so it's just talking about how when the world is changing, we're changing, and we're not necessarily thinking that we are. Just everything is affected, one thing next to the next. So yeah, I think I'm taking too long, and I apologize. So let's see here. Lastly, global competence is not something that kind of ends with me at Drexel. And being a global engagement scholar and really attending events or attending situations, even in my life outside of school, with the mindset of having global competence and you know, being respectful and having cultural relativism when it comes to, you know, people telling me about their lives or anything like that. It's a never-ending lesson. And through my curriculum at Drexel and working towards, you know, this achievement here, I've learned more ways to cultivate my own global competence. So that's something that I've been proud of, even though my time at Drexel was fairly short and most of it was on my computer. But yeah, so that's that.
Thank you so much, Katelyn. I'm curious, what do you think is next for you? How are you planning on sort of taking all these experiences into whatever career path you're thinking about engaging?
So in October of last year, I've been in the same office job since I started. I got a big promotion in last October, and it kind of made me realize that maybe I don't want to do what I'm doing. So I am studying for the LSAT. I'm thinking about going to law school. I'm not sure, but this summer I'm taking a prep course. So I think I'm going to take the exam at the end of the year, I think in November. And kind of going from there. But yeah, it's been like, it was a good kind of wake up call for me to say, oh, I don't think that, you know, I need to be where I am. So yeah.
Thank you so much. If you're thinking about law, are you thinking about, you know, international law, something related, or not, which is totally fine too. Just wondering.
I don't know yet. One of my coworkers, she used to work in a law office, and so she's like daily trying to talk me out of it. So I'm not sure yet, kind of what branch, you know, or kind of what genre of law I would like to specialize in. International law is definitely something that I've thought about, but that just, yeah, I think I'm still. Let me just see if I can pass you know, get a good score on the exam first.
In a prior life, I worked in immigration law, so I'm always happy to talk about those experiences with you. Other questions for Katelyn?
I just have a quick question. Like, how did you find that music with Miss Gina? Was it like something through that you had to do for your classes, or was it just?
No. So my mom works for Broward County, the school system. So it was like a connection through my mom. How did I find like her specifically, or how did I find the music? Or
just how did you find that program and like started doing that?
Yeah, so that was the connection through my mom.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I can send a playlist.
Any other questions for Katelyn?
This is less of a question and more of like just a comment. I also thought I wanted to go to law school. The DA's office, it's an unpaid internship, but it's if you like trial as opposed to like litigation or briefs or whatever, it's a really good internship. I mean, I was in the juvenile department, so it was a little bit emotionally gripping, but they let you bounce around. So if you want to do economic crime or something like that, they have a really great one, and it's like fall, winter kind of time.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Chloe. All right, well, thank you so much, Katelyn. Casey, who do we have up next?
Up next is Vanessa.
Right. Let me try to share my screen. Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa, and I'm a custom design major with focus in neuroscience and biophysics. And now I'll be sharing a little bit on my journey as a global engagement scholar. So I'm from India, and in 2016, I came to the United States to attend Drexel. And I was impressed by the focus on liberty and personal freedom and the individuality. Just the freedom to like express myself, to create my own major, to develop my own path. And I enjoyed going to museums and learning more about different sports and getting exposed to a lot of these different things. I also got an opportunity to become part of different communities through these alternative spring break trips with Habitat for Humanity and American Hiking Society. And they also gave me a better picture of different parts of the US, as well as different areas like socioeconomic disparities and racism that helped me get a more complete picture of the place. And then I also went to Guatemala, the intensive course abroad, in fact, with Chloe, who's also here. And yeah, one thing that I really wanted to talk about is this, a story that an environmentalist called Armando told us about. So I'm just going to share that story. So there was this old indigenous man who plucks some avocados from a tree nearby him and like eats the avocados and then decides to plant the seeds. And a couple of foreigners were really surprised seeing this action because this man is too old and it doesn't seem like he'll live long to like see the fruits of the tree that he's planting. And the man replies that I'm able to eat this avocado because my ancestors planted a tree, and this tree I'm planting is for my future generations, not for me. I was very impressed by the story, and I started to think about the way I look at development and how it's defined. And even the more broader concepts of development, like sustainable development, it's about like meeting present needs while still like without compromising ability of future generations to meet their needs. But I felt that this old indigenous man's concept of development was development of the future, really meeting the needs of the future generations. And I think oftentimes when people from the so-called developed countries go to countries like Guatemala, they try to either help them or teach them. But with this, I realized that the world has so much to learn from this indigenous man's insight. And we just have a lot to learn from people from all different cultures. So that made me a lot more open to learn from everybody and to be open to those learning experiences. And I thoroughly enjoyed my experience in Guatemala. We got to do a lot from trying to build stoves to setting up water filtration systems, learning to weave, get cotton, and also to make chocolate, and also just the biodiversity over there. So, and to be part of that culture and community. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I did a co-op in Singapore. Initially, I was just like surprised and shocked by the number of rules and regulations, from like no eating and drinking in the subways to like, okay, no feeding birds or animals, no chewing gums, and also more serious things like not like restrictions on what you can say and what you cannot. And but over time, I realized that a lot of these rules and regulations also allowed like a lot of other kinds of freedoms. So like being able to live in a clean environment, being in a place that's safe for everyone, no matter what time of the day, in a place that's really organized and disciplined, and where you don't see any quarrels. It's just so peaceful, and you can live your life in a peaceful way. Even if the subways, like the MRTs, are crowded, people still follow, like they queue up, and everything is like just so organized. So I realized that different countries really value different things. But in the United States, I saw that people valued that personal freedom and liberty. In Singapore, I saw that people valued more the community aspect and having a peaceful environment. And I learned to just like appreciate those differences and enjoy whatever that country has to offer me. And when I was in Singapore, I got to explore volcanic mountains, lakes, and tropical forests in Indonesia and Malaysia, and also certain cities. So it was a lot of fun. And then, yeah, let me talk a little bit more about my coursework right now. So I took a course in tropical biodiversity in Ecuador, and that helped me better understand kind of the flora and fauna that I've already seen in many of these equatorial places, Guatemala, Malaysia, Indonesia, and to some extent, things that I was like used to even back in India. And as I was learning about the indigenous groups, I learned that a lot of the indigenous groups that are present today are very violent, and I was surprised by that. But then learning more, I realized that only groups that violently defended their territories were able to survive colonialism. So I was used to the idea of like how humans influence, have like changed lives of other species, causing some to go into extinction. But like this gave me a sense of how humans have also influenced which cultures survive and which don't. And that made me more passionate to contribute in any way I can to help different cultures to thrive and survive in this developing world. And when I was back in China, this is before I went to Drexel in Tibet, I was, whenever I was talking to people and they replied in Chinese, I always felt like they were very rude to me or very angry, and they were almost like yelling. That changed as I stayed there for longer. I became friends with a lot of people. But then when I took Chinese one at Drexel, I realized that their tone was really carrying more information about the words and the meanings of the words rather than their emotional content. So I realized that I shouldn't judge people first of all, and not based on kind of the expectations I have or the worldview based on my culture. And over my time at Drexel, and then through these different international opportunities, I got exposed to a lot of different world religions, from things that I was already used to. So like the Hindu temples over here, as well as the Buddhist temples in Indonesia, mosques in Malaysia, and churches in Guatemala and in the US, as well as attending Mayan indigenous ceremonies in Guatemala. And I appreciated the diversity and the different ways they approached spirituality. And then through coursework and sacred traditions of the East and sacred pilgrimages, I realized that there was like a common thread amongst all of these different religions. And that was this focus on pilgrimage, walking, and circumambulation, whether it's Jews in the Western Wall or Christians going to the Camino de Santiago. There was this aspect of leaving home and going to an unknown place. And the process of walking and circumambulating, whether it was circumambulating around an idol in Christianity, around the Mahabodhi tree by Buddhists, or Kaaba by Muslims, or mountains by Hindus and Buddhists, or even entire islands by Buddhists in Japan. So I realized that, like, despite all of these differences in these religions on their philosophies, on the way their practices, there was this aspect of going away from home and going to a different culture, living in a foreign land. And in that process, not just learning about the other culture, but also learning about your own self. So as I continue my journey, going around the world and learning about different cultures, I want to make sure that in the process, I'm learning about the world as well as learning more about myself. And it's a journey both outwards as well as inwards. So then these are some places that I've been to right now, a lot still missing. So I'm hoping to travel more. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's such an interesting presentation. to hear about all your experiences and reflection on your experiences. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from Vanessa?
I have a question. I loved your presentation, by the way. The photos and imagery were beautiful, and also just the way that you wove those threads together. I'm curious, the comment you made towards the end about learning about yourself. What do you think what are some things you've most learned about yourself through all of your experiences?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the things, like, you might see that most of my pictures were a lot of like nature and the aspects of like culture. That's something I've learned about. Like, in the process of going out and seeing different places, I learned what I really enjoy. And that's been this like feeling connected with nature has been like an important part of not just my travel, but about me. And also just like different cultures. I think that's been something that I've been able to learn more about myself, that I like to be in these diverse environments, whether it's in terms of different people, different languages, or different cuisines and so on. So that interest in nature and diversity, I think that's been a major part of me, which I've discovered through these travels.
Okay, other questions?
You had said that you were in China before coming to Drexel. What program was that?
Oh, so I was hiking in the Himalayas, and it wasn't really a program. It was it was just a hiking trip, and then I was there for like about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it was a short trip.
Sure, it was still fun.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed, and I think that was one of my first experiences, kind of like, long-term hiking, and that helped me begin to like start hiking, going towards like other just beautiful nature spaces.
Did you know going into Drexel that you wanted to design your own major, or were you more excited or inspired to once you arrived and learned about that opportunity?
Yeah, so when I came to Drexel, I started off as a biology major, but then soon, like I realized that I was also interested in physics and kind of the mathematical aspects, and I wanted to use more mathematics and physics in order to study life systems and biology. So, and then I developed more interest in neuroscience, and that was kind of the brain and behavior. That's what I wanted to do. So then I realized that I would kind of bring these fields together and create my own major. And I think it was also that like difference in culture. So like back at home, I wasn't really used to choosing courses, or like it was pretty much a fixed path. So coming to the US, that was something that was like I wasn't really prepared for. So that was a nice experience, like where it was like, okay, I can do this by myself and create my own major. That was really nice.
What do you think is next for you?
Yeah, I'll be doing my PhD in neuroscience at Johns Hopkins. So it's like I've been doing research at a lab with Johns Hopkins and Genalia in theoretical and computational neuroscience. So I'll actually be continuing my research project for my PhD.
Excellent, congratulations. And how do you think you'll incorporate some of your global experiences into that PhD?
Yeah,
Through global collaborations or research, yeah.
Yeah, research in general is highly collaborative and across all of these different countries in the world. And I already have like collaborators across different parts of the world, some of them in China, some of them in Europe. So I'm looking forward to having that openness to learn from other people, and not judging people, and having all of these skills that I've developed, I think will help me in working with people from all over the world. And hopefully maybe with less COVID, we might have more conferences around the world and more travel. Looking forward to.
Absolutely. Wow, that's really fantastic news. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that's, Casey, is that all we have for today, right? Or no, we have Chloe.
We have Chloe. That's our last one.
We have Chloe. Do not forget about you, Chloe, I promise.
No worries. Just gonna share my screen really quick. I'll try to be really quick because I know we're almost at, or exactly out of time. Okay, so me, the global engagement scholar. Who am I? Where have I been? Where am I going? That's what I hope to answer today. So these are just fun facts about myself. I'm graduating in 1 week with a BA in Global Studies like Katelyn. My minors are Spanish, political science, and I've had 4 semesters abroad. And I've tried to do varied things with them. So the first, I did the freshman summer experience where I did a language course intensive, and I was also like an au pair because I didn't want to have to find my own apartment. So I just lived with these people and it was lit. Then I did my, then I did my international, international co-op in Berlin. I did legal research. I really thought I wanted to be this legal scholar and maybe even a professor, but that didn't work out when I started studying for the LSAT. So we switched, and I'll kind of go into what I'm going to do later in other slides. After that, I did the Guatemala trip with Kate and Masna, and Katelyn also did the same trip, but we didn't do it at the same time. And then my last international trip or experience at Drexel was a semester abroad in Madrid. So my international interests over time, they started in 2012 when I went to a special admit high school here in Philadelphia called Bodine High School for International Affairs. And that's when I kind of really fell in love with the idea of connecting like classes and what you're learning locally to like global aspect. So I graduated in 2016 and I did the International Baccalaureate program, which was really intense and very rigorous. And it kind of forced me to think critically and ask questions instead of just taking in what I was learning. And that's me graduating in high school. In 2017 and in 2019, I went to Spain. So that was my first and last international experience. And I think this is just like the acceptance letter for the study abroad thing. And then in 2021, I'm going to Johns Hopkins as well, but I'm going for international relations. So I'll be starting the Master's of Arts in International Relations program. And I hope to make a more understanding and just world. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that, but that's my goal. So these are just pictures. Over here, this is like German, but it's wrong. It's supposed to be an E when you're talking about feminine things, but I had only been in Germany for a week, so I didn't know that. This is just a cardboard cutout of Angela Merkel, who was chancellor at the time. This is me in high school during my freshman summer experience. I went to this like churros place. It was delicious. I go back every time. This was outside my school, Comillas. It's the very last day of classes, so I was very excited. I took a boat to Morocco just because I was like over it after finals. And this was obviously the pose of 2020 or 2019. So I was doing this for like every picture. Kate took this picture down here in Guatemala at the hostel we'd stayed at, the first place. There we all are, just like in the back of some guy's pickup truck on the way to plant trees. So there's Masna and Kate and everyone. And then this is a 60 euro fine that I got because I bought the wrong metro ticket. So I took a picture of that because I wanted to show it to my mom. And then here is in Berlin. I used to live near a school. And so this was like the school crossing sign and it says thank you. So I thought that was cute. I'm also getting a lot of emails right now. Sorry. So it was really important to me that I'm a global studies major when I'm not abroad, that I'm also connecting with global content here in the States. I know it says Philadelphia. This is at the UN. I did the Global Engagement Summit with GES in 2019 or maybe 2018. I'm not sure. But this is me sitting in some ambassador's chair and pretending to write something important. And then I also did the University of Penn School of Law Global Institute for Human Rights. It's basically like a lecture course, and I didn't take any classes because it was my first like virtual class, so I didn't know how to do that. I just took a picture to show my mom that I was actually in class. And then I did Global Passport Series from 2016 to 2019. I don't have any pictures of those, unfortunately. But I also did some global classroom experiences this year. So I did the intercultural communications class. And then there's like another class where we're kind of talking about how to do international partnerships in business. So that was pretty cool. So basically, how has my global confidence grown? I've really decided with this, everything that I'm learning and what I'm taking with me is to recognize my own role and where I am both as a student and a consumer of international culture and content in creating and mitigating conflict. So where I can do more to end conflict is kind of what I want to do. And my master's degree concentration will be in conflict resolution and election security. I will have to narrow it down, but I don't have time and I don't know what I want to do yet. So we'll figure that out later. My IR-centric courses have taught me to leverage my privilege in these scenarios. So whenever I can, do my best to prioritize narratives that mitigate conflict. My definition of self has expanded to global citizen. So prior to going to Drexel, I was just a Philadelphian, and then I was a Drexel student, but now I really consider myself to be an active member of the global community. So that's pretty cool. Like Katelyn said, I've also deepened my understanding of activism and diplomacy and kind of how they intersect. So these pictures at the bottom, I did the Model Organization of American States class, and that was just the banquet they had. This is just for my Instagram. I think the caption was America's Next Top Model OAS. I thought that was funny. The second one, I took this picture on my very first plane ride. I think it was to Spain, and I just remember thinking like, wow, the world is so big and you can't see that like below the clouds, but once you're up there, like it just goes on forever. So I thought that was pretty cool. And this is also the same Model OAS class. It's kind of like Model UN, but you're only representing countries in the Caribbean and North Central and South America. So we were St. Kitts and Nevis and we won something, but I don't remember what it was. Everyone in this picture has graduated except for me. So that's interesting. And then how is GES shaping my future? So because of these programs, classes, events, I've been able to network with industry professionals that really helped me to kind of figure out what it is that I want to do when I grow up. I met my mentor. I've been able to visualize my goals. So something that I really struggled with during my whole undergraduate is saying like, I know the kind of work that I want to do, but I don't know what it's called. And being able to attend these classes and seminars, I was able to see like, oh, well, that's what a diplomat looks like. And that's what I want to do. And that's where I want to be. So that really helped me like forming my essays for graduate school and just explaining what it is that I see myself doing. I also gained valuable international experience that really helped me stand out. So this Johns Hopkins program is actually like geared towards mid-career professionals. So a lot of undergraduates who don't necessarily have the same like international experience that I've had are not able to apply because of that. So I was really grateful that I was even eligible. And now as a result of finishing, I'm able to envision myself going further and making a global impact. So this picture over here, sorry, it's so grainy, is the US Agency for International Development's strategy for democracy, human rights, and governance. I put this here because that's what I want to do. Once I graduate with my master's, I'm going to try to be a foreign service officer or a diplomat for USAID working in election security. This is just my acceptance letter to prove to you that I am going. And the bottom, I know this kid looks like he's not really happy, but we were hanging out just before this. This was in Guatemala, and I took this picture again from my mother so she could see all of the mountains and kind of what I was doing. So that's really it. I know we're short on time, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks so much, Clay. What interesting experiences. And I think I'm going to steal part of your playbook and decide to be an au pair as well, so I don't have to pay for rent. Questions for Chloe?
I have a quick question. I know Spanish was like a big part of your studies, and that's why you did stuff in Spain. Do you think that going forward you're going to have a lot of focus on that, or are you just like focus on other things now?
So for this master's program, I actually have to take a very intense like exam, and then they kind of put me on a track based on that. So I have to write, like, it's you get 20 minutes, you get like a New York Times article, and then you have to write a paper in Spanish on like nuclear proliferation or election security or whatever. And yeah, so I hope to learn some of that vocab before I have to take that test. But I'd see myself probably speaking Spanish, and USAID, they do a lot in South America. So it's kind of really important that diplomats have those language skills. I hope to pick up another language, but I'm kind of old now, so I don't know if my brain's gonna be able to suck it up like it used to, but I'm gonna try.
I think you can if you want to.
Well, you are not old, because if you are old, then I'm worried for my ability to learn a new language. Other questions?
This might require a bit more critical thought, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but with you talking about you developing a sense of self and understanding that you are a global citizen, do you have an idea of what the most important characteristic of a global citizen is?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with what everyone else said. It's understanding. So I didn't really realize the whole like global, that I was a member of this global society until I moved to Berlin and I was there. I didn't have a visa, so that was like a whole thing too. I was like, I don't really feel like I belong here, and that whole sense of like, oh, everyone is looking at me, and the police can randomly just be like, let me see your papers at any time. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking. And I had a neighbor who was just this random old lady, and she was kind of just like, yeah, and no one would say hi to me and stuff like that. She was the only person. And I was telling her like, yeah, like nobody says hi to me, like nobody smiles at me. And she's like, yeah, well, Germans don't think of surface gestures as being good citizens or being, nice. We pay 30% of our taxes so that our neighbors can go to the doctor or so that children have education. And that's what being a good citizen to us is. So I'm sorry that no one's saying hi to you, but we're all working for you. And I thought, and that's instantly when I was like, well, I am part of a global system, and I do pay into this, and I do it in other ways, not necessarily here, but, and so that's what I've been trying to do in my daily life. And I think that's what it takes to be a global citizen, just being an active member, caring about others.
That's a really interesting point. I'm curious about your OAS experience and your model OAS experience. How do you think that some of the learning outcomes from that experience might impact your role as an FSO down the line? Like, what are some learning outcomes from that experience?
Well, I learned that policy is really political, and of course, like you'd think like, oh, of course it is. But I thought policy before taking that class was just having a good idea. And I thought that, if you have a good idea and you write sound policy, of course people are going to vote on that. Why wouldn't they? But when you get to the OAS, they actually like make you interact like you were a diplomat. So you'd have to go over to someone and say like, hey, I really want, free education throughout the OAS nations, and I want you to pay into that. And they're like, well, our budget is, we already committed to this, or, this country is our best friend and they don't like y'all. So it's unlikely that we're going to sign on to this. And so I'm sitting here, we have 15 minutes before we like vote on this. And I have one person that signed on to my, my policy. So it really helped me to think, I guess, to be more strategic and understanding that to be an FSO is more than just showing up and being like, oh, I just want to be here and learn from you. It's about having a combination, a balance of good ideas, but also knowing how to like talk to people and interact in a way that is going to yield the best outcome for everybody. So.
Great, thank you. That's absolutely true when it comes to diplomacy and policy making. But having those experiences, I think, will greatly, help you along that way. Any other questions before we wrap up? Well, congratulations, everyone. I wish we could be here in person to celebrate you, but I have been thrilled by these presentations, and I hope you'll allow us to maybe post your presentations on our website so other GES students can see them. And I just want to wish you sort of, best luck in the future with all your endeavors. Keep us posted on the things you wind up doing. We'd love to hear updates from you. We love hearing updates from our alumni about how they incorporate global into their post-undergraduate career. So please keep us posted. And I will be submitting your information to the registrar to confirm that you have graduated with Global Engagement Scholar distinction. So a big congratulations again. And feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions or concerns or life advice or anything like that in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.